Okay, this is it. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go.
Welcome back to the Terribly Vexed podcast. I'm your host, Josh.
And I'm Justin.
Right over there's Justin.
Yeah.
And it's been a while.
Yeah.
I want to apologize for that. It's been a minute.
Yeah. I'll take full responsibility for that.
But, you know, I had the COVID-19, so you can't take full responsibility for it.
2 weeks of that was Josh, for sure.
Quarantined.
100% Josh.
Baby shit. It was nothing. Kicked its ass.
There you go.
I was chopping wood in 3 days.
Yeah.
Clearing brush, pruning trees.
You didn't get the vaccine?
Oh. You're going to go there.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, I figured why not.
Why don't we do a whole episode talking about all of this stuff that's going on right now with the vaccine, or as I like to call it, the injection.
I got my first injection.
When do you get the next one?
The 30th of April, this month.
Have you noticed any adverse side effects?
None.
Adverse side effects?
I have a bit of a sore arm, but that's it. I got the Pfizer.
Which arm?
Left delt.
Oh, okay.
And that's why it's brown and kind of rotten off.
I noticed that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
But
so, like, if I've had it, I've got the antibodies now, right? I'm good.
I don't know how all this works. You hear so many different stories. I was on the fence about getting it, and then you're hearing about the UK variant that's on the way.
I was watching some stuff today about all of the mutations.
I figured, what the hey? Let's go get it.
It was a 60 Minutes segment. It was about 14 minutes long, and the whole thing was about the many mutations that are happening. I guess hundreds, if not thousands of them.
Isn't that with any virus, though?
That's true, with any virus. Yeah. It's always a shot in the dark when they do the flu shots every year. They don't know. They're just taking a guess at which variant, which mutation is going to be most prevalent during the season.
Hey, it's like I like to say, what are you going to do?
You do say that all the time.
Yeah. So I got that. That's, and some other stuff's been going. That's why it took us so long, so long to get this going. But
4-ish months,
Yeah. I believe, though, last episode, we did the Dennis Martin disappearance.
Yes.
And we ballyhooed an interview with Dwight McCarter.
Yes, we did.
And we did it.
We did.
It happened.
We did get the interview.
And it went all right. We had some technical issues. The acoustics were really not the best of the best.
No.
Of the best, sir, with honors.
But while you mention that, sorry to interrupt you there for just a second there. I just wanted to, even though the acoustics weren't the greatest, plug the campground.
Yes.
The facility. They let us use their facilities. Heat. We got to go into the room, turn on the heat. It was in the winter. It was in December when we did the interview. And they did let us come in and use their stuff free of charge.
Yes, very nice.
So thank you very much, Little Arrow Campground in Townsend, Tennessee, for letting us come in there and use your facilities.
Yes.
So if you need to go, they got all kinds of stuff there, tents, and if you've got an RV, you can,
it's right on the river.
Right on the river. And you should go and check it out if you come to visit the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. It's right outside the park. I mean, you can throw a rock and hit the sign.
Hit the old sign, yeah.
You're right there at the Y. So go check them out if you come down here and pay us a visit.
Which is on the way to Cades Cove.
Cades Cove.
Which is close
to
where people
disappear and are never seen again.
Exactly. Full circle. Right back to it.
Yeah. So, thanks. Thanks, Little Arrow Campground.
Thank you very much. But, when you do listen to this interview, it is a little echoey. You can hear the AC or the heat unit kick on and off and some kids in the playground playing.
It was a basketball court right outside. You know.
But
all in all, it went well.
Yes, very well. Very long. Very, very long.
For a remote interview, as we like to call them. We go remote when we have to.
Yeah. And travel.
We'll go wherever. We'll go wherever and do whatever it takes.
Exactly. So.
And we practice safe interview techniques.
Yes, we did.
Such as we distanced ourselves.
You can see that on Instagram.
In the pictures.
Picture proof. And on our...
We have 10-foot XLR cables to provide plenty of space.
Mm-hmm.
Should we interview you? Because Justin really, think about this interview, is he loved it so much.
Let me tell you.
And loves editing interviews, and he loves the process of the interview.
The interview process. This is my first interview. You're not going to hear much of me.
First official.
Because
many more to come.
Yes. But every question I asked seemed to be dismissed pretty quickly. I asked about Bigfoot at one. I think that I left that in.
Yeah.
I asked about Bigfoot, and Josh would ask a question. It'd be an hour and a half story. I asked, "Hey, you ever hear any Bigfoot stories?" No. So it's just nothing.
Well, I'm pretty well versed on his career. I'd read a lot of his almost all of his books.
You are a big fan.
Yeah, and I was kind of ready and knew what to specifically ask.
Yeah. I kind of just went into. I was just clueless, really.
UFOs, Bigfoot,
I wanted
monsters.
I wanted the creepy stuff
right out of the gate.
Yeah, but he wasn't having it. So.
Until the very end.
Yeah.
Then it got a little interesting.
It did.
So
it does. You'll hear it.
Kind of talking about the interview for a second. I won't go into the specifics. I'll let you listen to it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But it just kind of we kind of cover a lot of his career and some of his interesting cases. And we, of course, talk about Susan Clements, Trini, and, of course, Dennis Martin, which was the big case.
He did have a very interesting theory about that.
Yes.
I like that.
It's... we're talking, a lot of the search and rescue guys, they don't speculate on the why necessarily, which I think we'd mentioned before in the other podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
And he really didn't do that either.
Yeah. He's good about that.
They don't really speculate on the why. So it's left up to, just taking all the information and trying to figure it out yourself, which is why it's so intriguing, I guess.
Exactly. That's why it's a mystery wrapped in a riddle.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is what we're all about here.
It's all we deal with day in and day out here at the Terribly Vexed podcast.
Yeah, which we're going to have a website up pretty soon. I guess there's one up now, terriblywexedpodcast.com.
Yeah.
It's kind of under construction.
Just
got it. Just threw some.
You can't really do anything there yet.
Not yet, but it will be there.
While we're talking about the website and where we're going to go with that, we do have an Instagram that I post things on regularly. I think I just popped the P like you told me not to. I'm sorry about that.
It's okay.
So go to our Instagram, which I believe is just Terribly Vexed Podcast.
Yes.
And you will find, even if we don't have a podcast up, some pretty interesting information. I try to keep it rolling there if I can.
Yeah.
Maybe every 1 or 2 weeks I'll post something. And they're kind of lengthy too.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of book recommendations. I'm going to put a lot of book recommendations on our Instagram. So follow us there if you'd like.
Yeah. And if you want to get in touch, terriblywexedpodcast@gmail.com.
Show ideas. We always appreciate those.
Anything.
Questions. Please send your questions.
Comments, good or bad. Please do that on iTunes, though, if you're going to leave a comment. Rate and subscribe, as they say.
We want to get a dialogue going here.
Yeah.
Which is important to us. We want to hear from people.
Love it or hate it, we want to hear it.
Yeah. Both. I don't mind.
Yeah, I don't either. So
yeah.
Got anything else?
Before we
roll the interview?
Roll the interview, yeah. I think that's pretty much it.
It was about 2 hours and change? And I cut.
Yeah, the full interview was about 2.5 hours, roughly.
Okay, it's an hour 19. So I cut, some just
tightened it up.
Yeah, a lot of bathroom breaks.
There's a lot of stuff in there,
so
we wanted to keep it on track as to what the subject matter was. Yeah. Like I said, we were prepared. We came in with a lot of, questions. And, we're talking about the Dennis Martin case. It's 50 years old, so we're asking somebody who's, near 80.
Yeah.
That's difficult for anybody.
Very good storyteller, though.
Yeah.
Very good storyteller.
But it's so difficult to, have to, and he's been asked so many times about it, and he's been interviewed so many times.
Yeah.
So I couldn't imagine somebody asking me,
Yeah, every once in a while, he got some stories, dates and years confused and stuff. So
he's found hundreds of people,
yeah,
so it's like,
so many
it's so
different
difficult.
dates and everything going through his head. So, we kind of snip those little...
He's forgotten more information than I'll ever even know.
Exactly.
So, here we are. Here's two guys he doesn't know, and he's, kind enough to grant us this one afternoon to answer all our stupid questions.
Yeah, and he brought a tote bag full of snippets and
photographs
pictures and stuff.
which you can see on the Instagram as well.
Yeah,
I posted some of those.
Yeah. So,
I guess we can go ahead.
Anything else to add?
I don't think so. I'm consulting my notes right now, and I don't think there's anything else.
All right.
Just enjoy the interview with Dwight McCarter, the tracker.
This is the Terribly Vexed podcast with Justin and Josh. We
Yes.
are interviewing a living legend, Dwight McCarter.
If you went missing in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park or in the Appalachian Mountains in general, this was the man that they sent to find you and bring you back.
Yes.
Retired National Park. Backcountry Ranger. The tracker, Dwight McCarter.
Yes.
And so you were just out of the Army a few years prior to coming into the National Park Service?
Yeah, I was in the Army 62 to 64, and discharged from Germany. They trained me as a paramedic at Fort Sam Houston, Texas. It's right near the Mexican border there, and so I was a sort of a paramedic there, and 5 weeks, I guess, I was there, and then they put me on an old DC-3 and flew to LaGuardia, and landed at LaGuardia, and it went from hot to cold, and then they had this ambulance, it's an old stretch, like a Pontiac, 4-door ambulance, and we went to Brooklyn, and there's a whole bunch of there's about 5 troop ships there, and so I gave shots to the troops, and you got to watch and not hit the bone there. That's a very you got to cup the fatty parts. You hit the bone, you're gonna make a barb. And they had me filing down the barbs. You ever see the old syringes and the needle part was separate from the plunger,
Right.
But you hit a bone and it curled up that little end, and so part of my job was to file it down. To
Make it. Yeah.
Where it didn't tear up more skin there. But I liked it in Brooklyn. Got to go to the Veterans Hospital there's like a big paddle wheel or ship or a boat that carries them from Manhattan, or over to this Veterans Hospital on the island, and I'd drive the ambulance down to the bottom 2 floors, and then go up and get me a cup of coffee there.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Your first position with the park, though, when you came down here, was a seasonal position. Is that right? You were manning fire towers, which is a job that no longer exists, obviously. Or does it?
It does.
It does not here, or it does here?
Everywhere.
Really? I just learned something new.
Yeah. That Look Rock is still in business. The one at Catalucci, the fire tower there, is still in business. There's one in North Carolina that's...
is that Sterling?
I think it is. Yeah, Mount Sterling, and
they have equipment up there, right? That kind of does all the job that you would have done back in the '60s, I guess. And
yeah, you want to be careful because when you go up in the towers, you gotta make sure that that the chairs, the wooden back chairs that has just little dowels, and it's got glass on the bottom, and you get up in the tower, and the tower is angle iron. It's real tall, and these 4 steel cables, lightning cables that come from above the little room that you're in. You got to get right on that chair when the lightning's hitting, and it'll.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
It'll run down and it'll blow out these. It's so many thousand degrees there. If it was to hit you, it'd go in your head or go in your feet and out your head.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've gone up in that fire tower, the one at Sterling, and they're a little scary to go up in those fire towers. They're very, especially on a windy day, they're kind of doing this number back and forth,
Yeah, dude.
And I guess there was a cabin up there too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you ever man that one at Sterling, or did you do like High Rock or?
I did High Rocks. I did Look Rock. I did Rich Mountain. I did was it Bunker? There's one between Elkmont and the Appalachian Trail, and Blanket Mountain.
Okay.
Blanket Mountain Fire Tower.
There's Shook Stack too, which is way over there.
Shook Stack. Yep.
Yeah.
It's
that one's really scary.
Oh yeah.
It's just perched up on a top there. There is nothing. Yeah.
Well, the wood is so rotten, you don't want to go up there now. Cause
first few steps are even missing,
Yeah.
So you have to kind of finagle your way up that thing. And I was latched onto it. The one time I've hiked out there and went up into it, taking pictures from it was, I had to brace myself.
When it would hit Bunker Hill up there, my hair would just about stand up, but I was safe on that cane back chair,
Yeah, I've never even considered lightning hitting those towers.
The whole purpose of you being up there is to watch for lightning and storms to start a fire somewhere, right?
Yeah, it's Osborne Firefinder. It's a brass. Now it's odd it don't hit the brass for something, but the brass is the Firefinder. It pivots, but it's got a little. Horsehair. You got to have horsehair to get your sights, and so you got to plot it. The map is right under of the whole park there, and you plot the lightning strike here and the lightning strike there, and
radio it in, right?
Yeah, yep, and they'll send a bunch of people out. A lot of time it'll be you too, It's we went on one on Panther Creek, and we had to spend the night, and lightning hit our sleeping bag. The Forest Service give you these paper sleeping bags, and it burned up my sleeping bag while I was in it, And I got out of the way. We had to build up a fire inside of a fire because we didn't have our sleeping bags no more,
Grief. And so, again, that was your first position with the National Park Service.
Yep.
And then how did you transition from doing fire towers into sort of search and rescue, and did some of the other more seasoned trackers at the time, like J.R. Buchanan, Art Whitehead, Grady Whitehead, kind of start teaching you how to do,
Grady's good. Archie was in the Battle of the Bulls. He's on the monument at Blount County Courthouse there.
Really?
And Archie, all of them Whiteheads are good. JR is the best, though. If you could get him to quit stuttering, he goes, blah, 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 by gosh. He's dead. He's been dead for quite a while, an author. And
these were the guys that all taught you basically how to do what they did.
They did. And they were good. Not long ago, about 7 years ago, they had some children lost, a boy lost at Klingman's Dome, and it may have been a few years back, but some of the rangers Webb and I forgot the lady's name already, McNutt, yeah, and then the other, and all of them wanted to run down through there, you know, and they run down through there, and I'm tracking the little boy down into Huggins Creek, and they're bumping up against me and trying to get around me, and I called Kenny, and I says, Kenny, if they get past me, we've lost that boy, because I've got to have them. They don't need to be bumping up against me. They're taking. I says, I found down the river where he came to this bush, and he was pitch dark. I'm following his footprints, and so it's about midnight or something, and he went around this bush, and he fell off this waterfall, and he hurt his leg because he's dragging himself now.
This is why you were carrying him out in the pictures.
Yeah, and I says, you got to get these people off my back, because this boy's dragging himself up the hill, and we're going to find him up here on this hill on the right, because he's not below where he fell off the waterfall. I stopped the people that were behind me, and I says, you need to tell them to get off my back, because we're going to lose him if they rush past me and mess up everything else, you know. But I says, what we got to do is back up the creek, and we got a lot of people. There's about 20 people. And I says, what they got to do is get about 20 feet apart, and here you go, get back to this 6 foot distance, you know.
Right.
And I says, I'm gonna. His tracks, his footprints stopped at the waterfall, and then all of this crawling. He crawled up to the side of the mountain, and then he'd crawl down and drink of water, and he'd crawl back up over the several days that he's there. And I says, you got to convince these people to get up. And he got to superintendent, and he says, you need to get those folks off of Dwight's back. He's going to cause the death of that boy if he
would be on their
if they
their
rush,
fault.
If they rush around me, and they're all want this big blue ribbon at park headquarters.
Right.
Yeah.
Such and such found such and such, you know.
Yeah. Everybody's wanting the glory and the fame of.
And Kenny told him, says, you all better get off of his back, or I'll come and arrest every damn one of you. And and we had Bill Webb, who's a ranger, and then we had two or three others, and they says, yeah, we'll help you. But so they quit running up against. That's the Park Service for you. They all want to be, but you don't want to be that kind of ranger. You want to be the kind of ranger that gets your skills up, and you slowly go along, and you determine what you're looking at and what you're not looking at. And I says, Kenny, I'm going to have them go back up the creek on the right side and get about 10 feet apart, hold out arms to get it, and I want them to sweep above me, and if they want to, I'll blow a whistle, you know, because I'll be down at the waterfall. And I says, they're going to find him, because he's crawling, he's dragging himself every day down to get water and down back to his rock or whatever. But he hurt his leg, he fell off that waterfall, you know, or he injured his knee or something like that. And Kenny did. Kenny got in the radio, and he says, y'all people are on the search. You need to back up the creek and do what Dwight tells you, or I'll take you to headquarters and fire every damn one of you.
Yeah. Was it always like that with the Park Service, as far as like
everybody wants
60s,
to be
70s, 80s? You kind of encountered that where people were, you know.
Everybody wants to be a hero.
But they don't have the skills.
Blame them. That's one of those pictures is Pat Patton. Pat is just a very nice fellow. He's, I think his wife died while we were finding that boy. Pat is a handsome. He looks like Fabio, sort of, in one of those. But that was awful. His wife taught school at Bryson City, and she's awful young to die. But they killed Pat because we was in there searching for that boy, and then his wife died. You know. There.
Man,
but we carried him out. We did. the story's not over with, though. I didn't object to them carrying him out quick, because in that picture you see a lot of young people and you see a lot of heavyweight people and everything. And I said, sure, call them and tell them you're, Dwight's old, he can't run like you can, but he's bringing the, and two, the boy got to speak to his mother, and she they held up the microphone, the squelch, and he talked to his mom. He cried, there. And he sends me Christmas cards every
Really? Still does?
I was going to ask you if you still keep in touch.
From Florida. They live in somewhere in Florida down there. But there's a Dr. Malone was with the RAM, rural area,
Metro,
remote area,
medical,
RAM. They got this old DC-3 that they go to Kentucky, and all these doctors line up in this old DC-3, and it's a tail dragger, and he's flying over Gatlinburg to check the snow conditions, and he flew into this snowstorm, and he called the airport and says, "Do you see me on radar?" And they says, "Yeah." Could you direct me straight to the airport? And the airport says, are you aware of the terrain limitations when we do that? What they should have said is, when we turn you to the airport, there's going to be a mountain in front of you. They didn't say that. They just said, are you aware of the terrain limitations when we do it? Yeah, Dr. Malone said. Well, so here he is. He flew into this cloud right above park headquarters, right above Laurel Falls, and it just went snow and clouds and everything, and so he turned right into this mountain where there used to be a fire tower out there looking right down on Wares Valley. I can't think of the name of it, but he turned right towards it. And he flew over the Laurel Falls, and when you got a big twin engine, you got one engine up in the air. The one that's pulling, that's keeping you flying, is the one that's on your right. Mm-hmm. If you're flying level, both of them are pulling. But if you're pitching to the right, you're losing lift in this one over here, and they were a whole bunch of people at Laurel Falls. Dr. Malone powered up, and he started seeing the trees and everything, and he went into a huge circle of, 20 or 30 mile there, and it's all clouds, and he's trying to head towards the airport, and he swung all the way around on a 12-mile loop. And he's coming right back over Laurel Falls, and he started encountering limbs, and he tried to power up, and he did mm-hmm. for a while, and it is eating up the energy in his right engine or something like that, and he plowed a ditch with the right engine at full speed, and the left engine is not doing much. It's not getting any lift. And he crashed and burnt. And the rescue squad went in there, and they got him out, But the searchers, they couldn't find the right propeller and the right gearbox and the right spinner cone. And the family had Lycoming engine, Hartzell propellers, and Beechcraft Corporation sued for $6.9 billion because they claimed that They interviewed all them people that was at Laurel Falls, and they says, did it sound like the left propeller flew off when Dr. Malone flew over y'all? Yeah, it did, you know. And so all the searchers, they searched for like 3 to 4 months, and they offered me minimum wage if I'd go search, you know, and I said, no, y'all go ahead and search. They searched like 12 and 14 and 30 miles around, and they ain't found him yet. Well, we found the plane, but the right spinner cone and propeller and gearbox was missing. The engine was still on the right wing, and the left wing, the propeller is still with it, you know. And they scratching and they searched, and they said, it's got to be along that 12-mile, because we interviewed these people at Laurel Falls, and they couldn't find it. They searched for 6 months and paid people minimum wage, and paid my preacher minimum, Jeff Wadley. He's the Methodist minister at the up near the state line of Virginia, where the young Methodists go to swim and paddle and everything.
You did a book with him as well, Mayday, Mayday, right?
Yeah. Well, they couldn't find it, and they kept paying them people minimum wage, and they were going to have to pay $6.9 billion. And I know Dr. Malone's family, and I didn't want to interfere with theirs, you know. Well, the Hartzell propellers and the different people that are getting sued, they come to park headquarters and they send them to Kenny, and they says, do you know of anybody that can find something in the woods? Yeah, Dwight can find stuff. And I'm retired, you know.
Yeah.
Well, where is he? We'll pay him minimum wage. Well, you done tried to pay him minimum wage already, and he ain't going to take minimum wage, you know. There. And they called me, Kenny called me, and he says, Dwight, you need to come over to these insurance company. They want you to look for that propeller. And I says, okay. I says, how come they can't find it? Well, they've been searching for it for 6 to 10 months or something, and they can't find it. They found the plane. and Dwight, can you find it? Well, I might. I'm not sure. And so I got my preacher from the Methodist camp up there, you know, in Virginia. And I said, Jeff, you're going to come with me, ain't you? And yep. And we went up to where the wreckage of the plane was there, and no right propeller and no gearbox, you know. And Jeff says, Dwight, we're going to walk that 12-mile. No. I says, we're going to go back against the grain where Dr. Malone's coming, and we're going to look for the spinner cone. We're not going to look on the ground. We're going to look at every tree that when he started turning and coming through those trees, we're looking for the spinner cone, because if he embeds at 300 mile an hour or whatever, the spinner cone's going to embed into the tree. If we find the spinner cone, we found the propeller. How do you believe that? I says, you just watch. And so we were there maybe 5 hours, and Jeff wants to look at the ground, you know, but because the right engine was turning with all this power, and it was making a ditch up through there and slinging dirt and everything. But I wasn't looking at the ditch. I was looking up at the oak trees, and I says, Jeff, there's that spinner cone, 50 feet up in that tree. I says, I'll pay you $150 if you'll climb that. He's younger than me. I said, if you'll go up there and get that spinner cone. Yeah. And I says, and I brought a steel rod with me there, a little thin steel rod. Mm-hmm. And he says, we're going to go on past the plane. No, I said, we're going to follow this ditch that this motor was plowing at full throttle. and we're going to put this steel rod into that mud, and about 100 yards probably before we come to the crash, the rod went down and ping, 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 and I pulled the rod up and measured it, and it's 8 feet. The pinging is 8 feet underneath the earth. And I said, Jeff, I'll give you another $150 if you'll dig up that propeller and gearbox that's
buried in the ground.
That's buried. And Jeff, he's young, he's shoveling, you know, and so and I said, I'll pay you another $150 if you'll call the insurance company in Manhattan and scrape off all the mud and get the serial number off of the gearbox. And that's what they want. And whatever they pay me, they paid me $690 there. I says, I'll give you half of it, you know. And sure enough, we dug up this, and them things are heavy, the dang propeller and everything else, you know.
Right.
And we drug it out to the woods, you know, and Kenny says, I knew you'd find that dang thing. And it's heavy, so we had a pole, you know, we was carrying it, and we
between the two of you?
Yeah, we talked to these high school kids helping bear it. I says, I'll give you $15 if you'll help us carry this propeller out.
That's awesome. Didn't take too long to find it then, though, did it? Right. They're looking for it for, what, 6, 8, 10 months? And
they were looking for a long time. If
find it in a few hours.
If you'll review Dr. Malone's aircraft crash in the Great Smokies, it'll be in the, I can't remember what the date was, you know. But,
is that one of those planes that you can visit? You know, you can hike to or
the plane's not there anymore. They lifted it out. But you can go to the site. If you go up Laurel Falls Trail, going to Laurel Falls, about halfway, you get to where all these people are stopping, and there's a creek flowing underneath. It's the only one. If you walk up that creek, and it's a little overgrown, but right on your right is a little plateau. And if you go up there, that's where the remnants of the plane is.
That's where it happened.
And you, like I said, you all have a book on the airplane crashes.
Yep.
Not just in the Smokies, but also in I think the one over there is listed off of like the Blue Ridge. I know of one off Browning Knob.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And I think that was in the early 80s. That one crashed over there.
Yep.
And that fuselage is still there. You can still hike to that one. I've been to that one before.
Yeah, the dang bears move in them, you know. There's one.
Makes a nice little home, right?
Yeah, there's one at Cosby Campground.
Does that take you up to sort of like the AT up there? Is that where that plane crash is? The F-4 Phantom plane crash, which was the fighter jet, right?
Yeah. Now it's back down the trail.
Pretty good ways.
Yeah, it's maybe 300 yards back down if you go to the AT, you know. But you got to take your boat horn with you to get them out of the one on, I can't think of the name of that creek that comes up there, Little Creek or something, but you go to where that plane is, and them bears come out and
shuffling about.
Yeah, you gotta. It's best them little bitty horns.
You get the big one. Scares them off, and then
you need a big horn. Yeah. You can't. It's a mess, I tell you.
Did you have any more questions about the Philip Romaine when you were talking about the sounds that he had?
You was wanting to know about the other one, wasn't you?
Susan Clements, when she disappeared, which, like you said, was in the same area.
Yeah.
Huggins Drainage.
She, what happened there is you come from Andrews Ball, and you come and you can sort of hear the people at the parking lots up there, you know.
Very close, yeah.
And she had a choice. She could have did that shortcut right up to where her car's parked, you know. Mm-hmm. But she chose to go on to the Appalachian Trail, where
the bypass trail, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and she came to that sign that said, what's the Double Spring Shelter. the word shelter, I told Kenny, I says, the word on this wooden sign is what, and she was within a mile of the tower when she comes to this sign, and it's like it's going to Andrew's Ball, you know. And I said, Kenny, if she reads that sign, she's from Ohio, the word shelter to her means if she's in Cincinnati or a big town in Ohio, she's going to search for a shelter, an official state shelter inside the community, you know. And she followed that arrow, and then again went down into Huggins Creek there.
When you go down into the Huggins Creek drainage, does it look like there's a trail starting from the main AT trail up there? Is it easy to think that could possibly be another way that you...
Well, there's no water breaks. The key to them people getting lost is as you're walking the Appalachian Trail from the fire tower or the Dome Tower, and you're walking towards Double Springs, there's no water breaks on the right. All of the water breaks they're cut out, you know. When you go down that hill, the park should, I keep telling them to block off those areas. It's little dirt paths that are wore off, you know. And they don't barricade them. They are to put signs, don't go down this trail, but
at the very least a sign, right?
Mm-hmm. You bet. All of them people that get lost wind up down on Huggins Creek on account of them water breaks there.
In 76, Trini Gibson, she disappeared from the same trail coming back from Andrews.
Right. Yep.
So, I mean, and I guess nothing was ever found of her, right?
I bet she's on Huggins Creek.
If you've got two people that you know of for certain, and possibly more, I'm not sure if you had any other people go down that same drainage, but...
Trini was lost, and they had me searching down Solola Creek. And I told them she ain't in Solola Creek, you know. Well, we want you to go down Solola Creek. And I says, we're going to hurt some people going down Solola Creek. Solola in Cherokee is Squirrel Creek, you know. And it's back. If you drive from the Dome parking lot back towards Newfound Gap, you'll come to where the old water pump. There's a steel gate and the little road that just goes straight down.
Little gravel road, right?
Yeah, and you go down there, and there was a hydraulic ram that I think back then it was still in operation. It wasn't electrical or anything. It wasn't pumping, you know, from somewhere else, you know. But I told him, I said, I've been down Solola Creek and it ain't nice, you know. And we had a whole bunch of rescue squad, and down Solola, right below the hydraulic ram, it takes in like 20 gallon of water to pump 2 gallon of water up to the where the little building is as you're going up to the tower. You know, it used to be a store there, I think. You know?
Really? Huh.
Yeah. And I said, this ain't a good idea. And we go down through there, and these big boulders, huge boulders that are 8-10 feet tall, and it's like a bunch of marbles, you know. And there's brush, and the rescue squad, the first thing they did was fall through that brush that came where these two big round rocks are, you know. There's a whole bunch of round rocks there. And we had to, the guy broke his leg. We had to get him out. And I called him. I said, I'm not going down Solola Creek. You can forget it. We got to carry this guy out and take him to the hospital. He broke his leg.
There's no way she would have gone down there.
Yeah. I says, she may be down there, but I doubt it, you know. Now, the dogs all said that she came up from it's something bushes out there. There's a bunch of laurel and rhododendron, and I can't think of the name of it. I was done talking about it a while ago, you know, I think.
They think she came back up Forney Creek or Forney Ridge Trail, and then came back through the parking lot and just went down the road possibly, or went up to the tower? Or?
She did the same thing that lady did.
She went the bypass trail back up to...
Yep. And she came to that sign, and the dog says that she turned and went right past the fire tower or the observation tower, and the dogs' tails are up. They're alerting, and J.R. It wasn't it might have been J.R. was with me and him was with the dog handlers, and I can't think of out in North Carolina or somewhere, and we took them 3 times. They said the same thing. They come up to that sign that says shelter, and they turned back towards the dogs went right past the tower, and their tails were up. When their tails are up, they're on a hot scent, there. When it's down between their legs, they've lost it, And I can't think of the name of that big gap, It's about 2 mile back towards the
Mount Collins shelter, I think. It gets pretty close.
And the dogs, their tails were alerted, and they went right to the middle of the road, and their tail went between their legs, and all 3 of them did. 3 different times, 3 different dogs, 3 different handlers, same thing. And they said that she got a ride. She got picked up. Or she might have got hit by a car, but if she'd been hit by a car, that tells me that they had enough scent that they felt comfortable, But there was the early search, and then there was a second search that Jimmy Carter made us go back. It's about 5 or 6 years later. We had to go back and search the same dang place, go down Salola Fork, And I told him, I'm not going down Salola Fork. You can forget it. And somebody else's turn going down Salola Fork.
Yeah. And they never found anything. Nothing was ever found of...
The dog says that she got in the car and left.
Nothing to find.
And that was that.
She wasn't there.
Mm-hmm. Now, there was another search. I call it the rabbit search. Rabbit is one of our maintenance persons. We call him Rabbit, And they let's see if I can. This young boy, I think he was 12, and somehow he got mixed up on that same bunch of turns, and JR and all of us were there with the dog team and everything. And the dog followed this young man down, and I was right behind the dog with the dog handler, and we were within a half a mile or maybe a mile of where that gap that you mentioned.
Towards Mount Collins.
Yeah, Mount Collins Gap. And I see where the tracks led off on the left, on a ridge, And JR says, by gosh, he stuttered a little bit. He said, we'll flag it, and come back in the morning. And, we came back in the morning with different dogs, I think, or may have been the same dogs. We got down there, and here's Judy Tucker, Dwayne Allier's girlfriend, one of our girl rangers. She's pretty, but she ain't much of a tracker, And here's Dwayne. Dwayne says, "We're going to let Rabbit go with the with the Rangers back down towards Double Springs, And I says, the maintenance, I got 20 maintenance. They ain't going to go along with that. They're going to raise hell. And they said, no, we're sending JR, and Judy's going to take the dogs down there. I said, well, it was me that flagged the spot. Why are you sending your girlfriend down I was the one that flagged it yesterday. Well, Dwight, we're training Judy. I said, I know what you're training Judy for, you know. You rascal, you. And so I had the maintenance, you know, and the maintenance were just raising holy hell. And Dwayne finally went and got Rabbit back from the Ranger group. There's about 20 of them, and brought Rabbit back, and then the maintenance were happy then. We went down to Mount Collins because we couldn't go down Judy's trail because that was her trail now. Not that she found it, but I found it. I found the track for it. But our job was to go down to Mount Collins and go down into the head of Rough Creek, you know. And so we had Rabbit and we had Willie Long Husky. Willie Long is about, I don't know, he's tall. Ain't a bit of fat on him, you know. The first thing he did was fall and bust his lip on one of them boulders, you know, going down. And then Rabbit, it wasn't Rabbit, it was the mowing machine operator. I can't think of him. He fell. It seemed like we fell all the way down them rocks, you know. And we got down to Rough Creek, and Judy's on the radio, and she says, Dwight, where you at? And I says, I'm over here below Collins Creek. We're heading down to Rough Creek. We found him. He was laying in the creek. He's a 12-year-old. He's diabetic. He didn't have his... Back then, you had to pee on a strip, you know. Mm-hmm. And we had... both of us had... Judy didn't have the pee on the strip thing, you know. I said, well, you got to get him to pee on the strip. And she says, I ain't got one of them. And I said, well, have him pee anyway or something. And so now we're down in the Rough Creek, and it's sort of flat, and it's grown up. And she says, Dwayne says, Judy, what is your location? We will bring the helicopter. And she says, I don't have any idea where I'm at. But you found the boy. Yes, he was in the river. Well, for God's sake, get him out of the river, you know. And he was hypothermic. His sugar levels were just going down something terrible, you know. And she says, I still don't know where I'm at. Call Dwight. Dwight will know where you're at. And she says, Dwight, this is Judy. Could you tell me where I'm at? We found the boy, but he's in. I says, for God's sake, get him out of the creek, you know, get him dry, build a fire, do something. He's gonna go into shock. Well, you need to tell me where I'm at, you know. And I said, okay, get your gun out, you know. Now don't shoot nobody and don't shoot the individual. I says, point it up a big pine tree or oak and shoot, and then count to 10 and then shoot again, and then count to 10 and shoot again, and I'll cup my ears and I'll turn in the direction. Now empty your gun, just wait about every, 10 seconds, mm-hmm. And shoot until your last bullet is up. Now don't shoot nobody, you know. And so, okay, I cup my ears, and the echo, the strongest, is right across this one creek and another creek, and I said, we'll be there in about an hour and a half there. And you just stay, get him, and we had Boob, Buford Price. He's a hero. And we ran over there to where the boy was, and his core temperature was down to just, I says, Buford, they're gonna drop us, they can't land in the helicopter, but gonna drop us a bunch of blankets and litters, and I says, I know this is gonna sound odd, but we want you to get inside all them sleeping bags, and we'll put him right next to you. And you need to get his core temperature back. I'm skin and bone. I couldn't heat up a hamburger if I wanted to. And Buford saved that boy's life. Buford, we called him Boob, you know, but Buford, And Buford saved his life. I told him, I said, y'all need to honor Buford. And we put that boy in with Buford, and he started waking up, and he looked, and here's this big hairy man, He's hugging him, And I said, son, this is Buford Price. Price is his name. I said, he's got 3 children that are grown of his own, And I said, don't be scared, Buford. Buford's taking good care of you. And old Buford saved his life. He did. They ought to give Buford a plaque or something at the courthouse. They give Dolly all kinds of plaques, but...
of course.
Boob ain't got the same...
And you were talking about sounds and stuff, and that people get, and that's why they start hiding a lot. And then I read an interview, quoted you, but they said that you told Philip Roman that there were mice. He said he heard rustling by his head, and then deer snorts, and it was scaring him, and you didn't want him to live with that.
That's right.
Are there any other weird sounds you could hear at night? The
little deer mice. Philip would be sleeping in the dry leaves, and he'd this mouse would be in his ear, And poor old feller.
Terrifying. Pitch black.
That would scare me.
Yeah.
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 I would have ate that mouse or something. Philip couldn't hold down a meal, and I cut the top off of a Coca-Cola can, and I got my little Survey backcountry stove, and I heated up something, some liquid, and it might have been soup or something, but he didn't throw up. He ate every bit of it, But I boiled it in a Coke can that was there, and he's alive today. He's go figure that they. But why all them people go down Huggins? Is the park ought to have enough money to put up a sign.
One of the bigger cases they talk about in the missing 411 is the Dennis Martin case.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which really was one of the bigger disappearances that people will talk about. And I guess there was a lot of changes made to search and rescue after that one, because originally the idea was to put a lot of people up there, whatever the person, but of course then you could lose, sign, right?
Well, the park were hauling people up Boat Mountain Road in this 5-ton stake track. And we come around this one bend. If you go to Boat Mountain, you haven't come up to Anthony Creek Trail yet, You're way back. You're about a mile, half down. There's one dip in the ridge, and I told Arthur and JR, I says, I smell something dead off in on West Prong, and they called. The searchers or the people in charge up at Spence Field, they says, we're smelling something dead. Dwight's going down the West Prong. Oh, he don't have to go down there. That's a dead crow. We found it the other day. I said, that ain't no damn dead crow. I says, you get back out of the mountains, and if you happen to find a dead crow, go over and smell of it. It don't stink, But a man stinks. Mm-hmm. I says, that boy is down West Prong. No, you're supposed to come up here at Spence, and we'll show you where to go. And we didn't have Kenny Slay as a ranger back then. That was in the 60s. If Kenny had been there, he'd have cussed everybody out and says, Dwight can go wherever he wants to, But I bet that boy is down on West Prong. There has to be.
You think somebody grabbed him, that they were being watched or something? They were up there for a few days. They camped at Russell Field first, and then they went up to Spence.
Well, he was coming back down Boat Mountain, and he went past that one coming from, I just said the name of it, and I forgot.
Anthony Creek?
Anthony, yep. Yeah. He went past it by a mile, the boy did. And he... for some reason, he decided to go down into West Prong. And me and Arthur and Grady and JR, we went down there whether they liked it or not. But that smell, you could move to, a human smell is the worst smell you can have in the woods, you know. And I said, that is not a damn crow. Crows don't stink. But they kept jumping on us, and they made us go up to Spence Field and go down Eagle Creek.
So you think when he got out of sight of his father that he just
he was
kept going on his own? And
well, he came around that bend, and he was hearing something down on West Prong, or he for some reason he went down that way. I'm not sure why, but
which is a pretty good ways away from Spence Field.
It is, yep.
Especially for a little 6-year-old boy. I
believe that's where he's at. If there's any left, but that's the thing, the shoes will rotten back, you know, and everything. But Grady and all of them says, well, we think Dwight's right. That ain't a dead crow.
What was that about the Keys family from Carthage, Tennessee, when they thought that they heard a scream near Cades Cove?
Yeah.
I think they had talked to a ranger, and he told them to go to Rowan's Creek, and that's where they heard and saw some sort of unkempt man who was standing up on the mountainside, and they thought that he had something thrown over his shoulder. Do you think that could have been in any way part of Dennis's disappearance, or was he just one of those random wild men that I've seen you talk about in interviews before? People that possibly lived still back in the backcountry of the park. We were talking about the wild men.
Yes.
Just before we left.
Yes.
And I was just wondering if you had any more information on that, because I'd seen some interviews where you were talking about the wild men, people that perhaps never left the backcountry deep woods that were living there prior to it becoming a national park, just using the Great Smoky Mountains National Park as an example. Did you ever see any signs of people living up in the national park out deep in the woods out there when you were backcountry rangering? Did you ever see any people that were, that you could have thought maybe these people aren't just hiking, maybe these people aren't just camping, maybe they're actually living out here?
Who did we call the wild man? All the rangers called this one guy the wild man. Who was
There was a guy in Cataloochee, I think.
Yeah.
But could there have been others, I guess, right, that lived out in the park?
Yeah, that's you're right. If you come into Cataloochee, it's a short distance from Interstate 40. You just turn off and then you climb through the Cataloochee Gap, I think it is. And I used to know that guy's name. I was the ranger at Cataloochee for several years. Arlie Phillips. Arlie Phillips.
He just lived out there?
Yeah, I'd come over. I'd go out to get something in Maggie Valley or something to eat, and I'd come back, and if there's snow on the ground coming through the gap there, you could see the Park Service. Their right of way or their property goes all the way right up to near where Arlie's house is. The family. Both the boys were a little slow, and the parents raised them in that house, and both the parents eventually died, and Arlie and his brother were there by themselves, and they burnt the house down the first night. They let the wood stove catch on fire at the second floor, and it fell down into the basement, and so poof, yeah. And there's Arlie and his brother, and they didn't get much clothes, they didn't have time, and so I can't remember if I was the ranger when it burnt down or not, but I would see his tracks a lot, Arlie. And he would hide behind a tree if I was on a trail, and I'd see Arlie's tracks, he'd go over and get right up against a tree, and I said, hey, Arlie. Well, how you doing? Okay. And I said, you doing okay? Yep. And I says, well, be careful. And he would patrol Cataloochee at night. He'd look through every garbage can, and he'd get all these plastic spoons, and they had Kentucky chicken on it, and everything. And every pocket that Arlie had, he had
stuffed full of
spoons and forks and
that's a little odd.
Very, very sanitary.
And I don't know who the people of Maggie Valley brought him all kinds of clothes when I was there. They'd come up to the gap there, and maybe a half a mile down, there's a little flat area, and they'd pile up clothes and food for Arlie and his brother, and I don't know. I think they eventually built him another house, or he's renting or something, there. But he patrolled at night. And the worst part of that job over there is these horse people up at the upper end, Arlie would go and steal their milk out of the cooler.
I think I read that.
Well, he wouldn't steal it; he'd just borrow it,
Yeah. There's a horse camp in Cataloochee, and he would,
And the horse people jumped him one night, and he whipped about every one of them.
He was feral.
Yeah.
He was a wild man.
He whooped all of their asses, and
he had reverted to the wild a long time ago.
And he'd grunt more than anything. He'd go, and I'd ask him. He liked to hang out over on the 12-mile strip too. You go down the lower end of Cataloochee and across that metal bridge. It's a historic bridge, sort of. And then you go up to where the 12-mile strip, the hunters, and I think Arlie would steal their food. They'd drive that, it's 12 mile to the Interstate 40. And he would go there and the raccoon dogs and bear dogs and everything. And Arlie liked dogs there. He did. But he'd walk all the way but I have no idea where he moved to after the house burnt down. But
was he the only wild man that you knew of that for sure lived in the Smoky Mountains or in this area? Or could there have been other people back up in there?
Well, we were talking about the Martin boy on that branch, that one branch before you get to the exit of Cage Cove, Loop Road. He's sort of a wild man, according to the family that in Carthage, Tennessee. The FBI, when we talked to him, the boy was last seen at a certain time. I can't remember what, at Spence Field, and as the crow flies, it's 5 mile just through the air to that creek there.
Rowan Creek, I believe.
Rowan Creek, and they told me that I was crazy, that he wouldn't have been able to carry that boy that far, And I said, that's crazy. I ran the Appalachian Trail through the park in 13 hours. I know if I can run 78 mile from the Fontana Dam to come out at Interstate 40. Bob Grant picked me up, and he had a big dope for me. I said, Bob, get me a big diet ride. Bob's the superintendent of Acadia now, the Acadia National Park. Go figure, that's the only ones out. That guy at Rowan's Creek something's odd about that, you know. But he had to know where he was at to.
Exactly, yeah.
Because if you go to Russellfield, and if he'd come from Spencefield over to Russellfield and come down, you get halfway down Russellfield Ridge, and there's a big gap there, and there's an old cattle road that goes down that cuts off probably a mile and a half and comes out right at where that family from Carthage were playing. So whoever this wild man was but the wild man got in a white van there. The Carthage people said when they drove up that they went past the white van. It's an old dirty white van, and the kids wanted to play in the creek, and they did. They got 2 boys and a girl, or 2 girls and a boy, you know, and after a certain period of time, I think the Carthage family, the father said that he heard a kid scream, and the father ran up the creek from where the kids, and he told the wife, gather up the kids and put them in the car, you know, because we heard this little boy or this kid scream, and he's on one side of the creek, and he sees on the other side this silhouette, this man, you know. He didn't see the kid, but by the time he could get across the creek and try to get the guy got in the white van and fled out, and the wife said that he nearly run over their car fleeing because I think she was parked down the road with the kids, you know.
Well, I'd never read that anywhere. I didn't know about that.
That they interviewed that family from Carthage. Now the park, I don't know if they believe that guy or not, you know. But this is the odd thing. I think he told him, or maybe I interviewed him, or I talked to him. Maybe he was a Marine. The father was. He was a Marine Corps, I guess, during the war, or maybe Korean. I bet the Korean War or something. And he didn't take no shit off anybody, you know. And I asked him. I says, is that the only contact that you had with that one individual? No. When we went back to Carthage, we started getting now back then in '69, you had payphones everywhere, and the Carthage family, the phone book is at Carthage is in these booths, you know, and he looked. The park made the mistake of putting the Carthage family's name in the local newspaper. That's a no-no, you know. And somehow it was picked up in Carthage too, and it was in that newspaper, Wild Man. And I think the father told me, and I may be wrong, that he started receiving calls from a stranger, you know. And what the guy would say was, you better keep your mouth shut if you know what's good for you there. And that guy's a Marine. He says, oh, boy, you come around my family, I'll take care of you. And he quit calling him then.
Well, I've never heard that.
That's an incentive to go get that book. I think Michael Bouchard, that's where I'm getting that. I think Michael interviewed the Carthage family. And Michael being I forgot the name of the state now. Connecticut.
Yeah, it was Connecticut.
He was. He had solved over 45 murder cases, or Michael had.
He's a detective, you said.
Yeah. He's a very nice fellow. I'd meet him at the Foothills Parkway, you know. That's who I think I got the information from.
From his interview.
Michael went and And if that guy'd bring my book back, I ain't going to talk to you, Channel 10, no more. They ain't worth a damn, you know.
I may send him some emails for you and see if I can. So I just talked with Dwight, and he wants his book back.
I want my book back. If you ever want me to talk about the Martin boy, you'd better send my book back. You know. Or probably the simplest way is to call Michael Bouchard, and I got his phone number somewhere, and have him send me another one, you know.
Yeah.
We'll do it for you.
Yeah. Yeah, look up Michael Bouchard, Connecticut there.
Yeah. Can we do one more? Do you want to talk about the last one on the list here?
Oh, I just had a question about the Moon-Eyed people. What your theories were on the Moon-Eyes down there? They've got that wall that's, at Fort Mountain. I think I talked to you about it one time, and you said you thought it was Prince Madoc, the Welsh explorer, was your theory as to who the Moon-Eyes were. Because they were here before the Cherokees came into the area.
Modoc. Prince Modoc.
Ah, Modoc, okay.
M-O-D-O-C.
Was that who you thought it was, the Moon-Eyes?
I have all the drawings and the photographs of the map that they had there. They chiseled it out on solid rock there, and
okay.
And the Cherokee didn't get along with them. They
fought regular battles and eventually drove them out, right?
Yeah, the Cherokee said that they were good in battle at night on account of they could see bright. They could see better at night than the Cherokees could, and the Cherokees run them off, and they went to Murphy, North Carolina. Their next there's a fort there on the quadrangle. If you go to Murphy and ask the people something mountain. And then the Cherokees run them away from there and run them to the next one at, you go 411 highway and you come to the Georgia state line, and you go about 5 miles into Georgia, and there's another fort Prince Modoc built there. It's bigger than the one they had at below the Cherokee, below Bryson City there. But I got all the drawings and the maps of the and what the different symbols. There's the European, or the symbols for the Welsh were like tick marks, you know, there, and some would be up, and then they'd be different symbols, you know. All those rocks are got all of it on there. Go figure why they stopped right there, but they call that branch. They got a different name, but if you look at it, I can't think of Welsh Branch. It wasn't, the park don't spell it W-E-L-S-H, but the Welsh spelled it W-E-L-C-H, Welch. And so they made it as far. Modoc never did come back and get them, you know. He just dumped them off in Alabama, and they fled into the Smokies and got into fights with the Cherokee.
And roughly what time period was this? 1200s, 1100s? Is that kind of what they were theorizing, I guess? That
1170 or something like that. They landed in Mobile.
Worked their way up.
Yeah. But Modoc never did come and bring them back, you know.
Have you ever seen any other weird walls, stone carvings in the Smoky Mountains when you've been out in the woods? Have you ever seen anything like that yourself?
There's supposed to be another fort beyond where Georgia, you know, on 411. It's right on the state line of Alabama and Georgia. And a friend of mine is a banker there, and he says there's a fort there that that is in a series of forts that the Welsh had. You know, if you get a chance to drive to the state line of Georgia, I wished I could remember the name.
Is that Fort Mountain?
Fort Mountain. That's the name of it.
I've been there to that one twice. Yeah, it's very weird looking up there.
It's like rock formations.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a 900-foot long wall.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
But the one at Murphy, too, is a good one. It's
I didn't know there was one in Murphy, so I'll have to go there and check that one out.
It's called Fort Mountain, too. There.
Okay.
Yeah, it's at Murphy, they don't advertise a lot of their stuff, I don't think. They could care less, you know.
They don't want anybody coming down there, right?
Can I ask one more real quick question?
Last question.
Yes, for sure. You both spend a lot of time in the woods, way more than me. You've had an experience that you've told me about where you were walking.
Oh, right, yeah. I'm surprised we didn't put that in our notes.
Yeah.
I was hiking by myself one time. I hike alone most times. And there was one instance where I was hiking along and everything got very, very quiet all of a sudden. It was like I walked into a airtight bubble. Mm-hmm. I couldn't hear any wind. There were no birds. There was no movement, no rustling. Normally you hear that stuff when you're hiking along all the time. And this went on for probably at least 200 feet or so. I kind of walked into it, and then I sort of eventually just kind of walked out of it. What do you think was happening there? It was a very weird experience.
When I was a ranger in Cage Cove, I collected fees and wrote permits for backpackers and everything. And I didn't get over to Ace Gap a lot. But if you go to the Methodist Church in Dry Valley, and the widow Kelly is buried there. If you go up to the boundary of the park, you'll come to Kelly Gap, and then you come to Ace Gap. And Ace Gap, I'd write a permit at Cage Cove for a backpacker, and if it was a woman backpacker, nothing. None of that silence and none of that nothing. But if I wrote a permit for a male backpacker, she steals everything that he got there. She does. The chief ranger of the Great Smokies, Jason Houck, he's 6'8", probably 300 pounds there. He rode his motorcycle. He rode the park motorcycle up Willie Wright's property at on Highway 321, and he drove it right to Ace Gap. And there's the boundary, and he chained the bike to a tree, and he put his tent out there, and he had the keys to the chain around the bike, you know, and he woke up the next morning, and his gun is gone. And that gap there is total silence. Brian Fitzgerald is the chief ranger of the Virgin Islands National Park off of Florida there. And me and Brian went to stake out Ace Gap one time, and I told him, now Brian, he's a big guy. And I told him, I says, I ain't staying at Ace Gap. I'm going to be a half a mile back towards Kelly Gap. I'm staying at Ace Gap, right, you know. And that woman bothered him all night. Brian is well thought of. He's smart. He's college, everything. And he comes and he says, and Jason Houck's the same. They think it's a woman. They feel like it's a woman. She stole Jason's pistol, and he's inside the tent. And she stole his keys and stole everything. And then he didn't have a key to get, and she stole his radio. And he couldn't get the chain off of the tree, so he had to walk all the way down to Willie Wright's property, and he called me, And he says, Dwight, you need to come over here and help me find my keys and my gun and my pack and this and that. And I said, no, I told you not to go there. I said, I ain't going over there. You ain't going to find all that stuff. She done carried it off, you know. And it's only men. She does not bother women at all.
Well, that is weird.
At Ace Gap.
It's very odd.
Yeah.
I was not at Ace Gap when this happened. I was somewhere else, but it was still just what you're talking about.
Deathly quiet.
I've never experienced it since that one time, and this was probably about 4 or 5 years ago.
Total quietness and stuff.
Total. It was like the entire forest was looking right at me.
Yeah. Well, Brian, the next time we staked out Ace Gap, Brian got up on the side of the mountain, and something was bothering me, and it got to my back, you know. And I turned to look back up on Walker Mountain, and it's gone, but it's still on my back. And I told them 30 ladies, I says, I'm leaving.
So what are we talking here? What's up there? What's out there?
Something's bothering me. That I can move 100 feet down the trail towards the main creek, you know, Hesse Creek there, and it goes away. And I can be up on Walker Mountain, hiking, taking hikes, nothing, not a bit of fluster or bluster, but it's one of them people that died there, I believe. It may be the woman, I don't know who. They bought, that was their dream home. There's a big house right in the middle of the creek, you know, it's 2-story. Mm-hmm. And whatever it is, I have no idea what it is, but I says, I'm leaving. Y'all can come with me or not. I can't figure it. Same thing. Yeah.
Is that the only time that's ever happened to you? Has that happened anywhere else in the park where it's that dead silence and you just feel like
Ace Gap, and then that down at
in those two places?
Of course, that we'd have to drive across the creek. There's a little swinging bridge or rail bridge or something. Them old people didn't care for us hiking. It was not there before they arrived. That I'd go up there, and they weren't building on the house or anything, and there's nothing. Nothing is on my back. Nothing is bothering me. But after whichever one of them that died, they don't give you no break, you know. It's like it's on the back of your neck.
Yeah.
Man,
go figure. But I have no idea but it had to do with that one elderly person that died, and then it left the remaining person, and he or she did not want to continue living there, and they sold it to sold the whole holler. Well, go figure. And the Ace Gap is at the head of that holler. Whoever that ghost is, it works that section right there, you know, there. Go figure.
Well, Dwight, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Yes.
I just want to give a quick little plug to your books.
Yeah.
Meag's Line.
Yeah.
Lost, A Ranger's Journal of Search and Rescue, and also Mayday, Mayday with Jeff Wadley, where you all basically went and found, I guess, every single plane crash in the Smokies. A lot of work in that book.
Yeah. Call Michael Bouchard or see if you...
We will. Yeah, we will.
There we go.
I'll start sending some emails out.
Yeah.
Like I got in touch with you here at the Valero campground.
Maybe they'll send my book back someday.
We're going to get on top of that, man. We're going to work on it for you. I promise you.
Yes.
Them rascals. Channel 10 is that way, you know. Lord.
Well, we're not like that. If we borrowed a book, we're going to get it back.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Michael will send me another one. You'll like him if you ever meet him there. He's a pretty sharp guy there. But I think he solved a lot of murder cases and stuff, you know. There, it's
might have to have him on.
Mm-hmm.
We have to send some emails
his
way too.
Well, he
used to
professional emailer.
Yeah.
He used to come. Tell him to call you next time he comes. You can interview him there.
We would love to.
Yes, that'd be great.
He's happy that I don't know if he's still a detective or what, but he's a very nice fella there.
Excellent. Thank you.
Then. Thank you for your time. There's so much time.
Thank you. Greatly appreciate you joining us today.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely.
Well, there it was.
Yep.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.
I don't know.
So, as you were listening to the interview there, you noticed at the very end, and this all just ran linearly. We didn't chop this thing up. At the very end of the interview, he began talking about something that happened to him. A ranger was camping for the night in an area where he told him not to, and some of his items got stolen from a ghost. Okay, so that's a little weird.
Mm-hmm.
And we were sort of probing all the while as we were asking our questions in the interview and trying to find out these kinds of things, but we didn't get to them until the very end of our interview time with Dwight that day. And we had been going for the 2.5 hour interview plus an additional 30 minutes of sort of meet and greet and get comfortable and set everything up. Yeah. So
he was tuckered. He
was tuckered out by this point, and we couldn't probe further. But that's really sort of what we were starting to get interested in, was that
right
at the very end of everything.
That's what we were trying to really get to for the whole thing.
Yeah.
But
so we may interview him again sometime in the future. It's a possibility.
I do think this was a good interview.
Yes.
And to be clear, you said we didn't chop it up. It was chopped, but as far as
the way we got the information
in order of discussion,
correct. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
I was trying to make that point.
Yeah. I know. I just wanted to.
Yeah.
We said we chopped it.
Yes.
So that's it. I just wanted to make that clear.
Everything ran in a yes.
Yeah. So.
Well. So anyway, we hope you enjoyed that interview with Mr. McCarter.
We sure did.
The tracker, who, again, found hundreds of people in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
Mm-hmm. And I like the fact that he's still in touch with Philip Roman.
Yeah.
Getting Christmas cards and stuff from him.
May not be the only one he's still in touch with.
Yeah. I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Because I was wondering that.
Saved his life, so.
Yeah, it's the least he can do.
It's the least. Send a card.
Yeah. And I believe on Instagram, the kid that he's holding, young Dwight, that's Philip Roman, right?
Yes.
Well, so there you go.
It is.
Instagram. Terribly Vexed Podcast.
Yes.
And go there. You can see it. So. Well. Just want to go ahead and stop there. That was a sign. We just had a ghostly happening. The lights just went out for a second.
It just went dark in here.
But we're still recording, which is good.
Excellent.
So, that's weird. Oh, spooky.
That was a little strange.
Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully.
And you don't want to talk about what we could be doing in the future. Next possible episodes.
Well, we can talk about the next episode.
Just to let... Yeah. Because we have that one pretty much figured out, what we're going to be discussing next time. Because we're going to be leaving... the missing 411 and the strange disappearances. We wanted to, when we started this, we wanted to just sort of cover the ones that happened in the Smoky Mountains, the big ones. Yes. And we did that for the most part.
There's so many more, though.
There's so many more. And we will revisit this topic in the future.
Yes.
However, for the next podcast,
we're going to...
More than likely the next podcast.
Yeah.
I'm guessing here. I don't know.
We're going to we're going to dip our toe in the UFO world.
Which is your area of expertise.
Mm-hmm. Well, not expertise. My area of most interest.
They don't know that.
Right. I expert. UFO expert.
He's a UFO guy.
We're going to discuss.
We got an interview with Bob Lazar. No, I'm just kidding. We don't have that yet.
Yeah, no way.
I'm working on it. Working on it.
We should get Stephen Greer. You familiar with him?
I think so.
Big, bald doctor guy. Takes people out and they have like little seance circles and stuff.
Oh, I'm not familiar. Different.
It's weird. I don't know what I think about him, but
I'm sure we could.
They all seem like wackos in their own special way. So, but not this next subject we're going to talk about, the aerial school.
Which you may or may not have heard of.
That's what we discussed. I believe it was the Zimbabwe school children incident.
Yes.
We talked about in one of the other episodes, but that's what we're going to talk about.
And we dug deep into that one.
Yeah.
A lot of information. We've had months and months and months to
Yep. Yes, we have.
dig into that one. So, and we have. So I think that's going to be the next episode.
We're going to get to the bottom of that one and solve it. So, all right. Well, look forward to that. And, Cherry Vexed podcasts across the board. Get in touch. iTunes, all that jazz. And
we'll see you next time.
Yep.